Hello, my name is Mary Jo Faustgen. I want to welcome you to the second in a three-part series on building relationships. Today we're going to be talking about romantic relationships. And I bring you the expertise of two of the best resources that I know of. John and Julie Gottman, they have a number of books both on marriage and relationship. And I've referred to them a number of times in therapy that I do over the years. They are called the America's Love Lab Experts, which I think is great. And this is the book that I use. And it can be used not only for marriage, but also for relationships, just other romantic relationships. The other resource that I would like to refer you to, you've probably already seen, maybe a different cover, but 5 Love Languages, and we'll be talking briefly about that today too. One of the best things that I've found to help couples. And so we're going to get started with the topics. Topics we'll be covering. We're going to first talk about what can destroy a relationship between two people, destructive communication, as well as Gottman's 4 Horsemen, the mistaken beliefs that people can easily get into, as well as some destructive influences that are other than those. And then we're going to start in the second half to talk about how to build that romantic relationship. And so we're going to be discovering a number of things that can help people as they work on not only their love languages, but better communication, better ways to work with each other. So let's get started. When a couple first gets connected, things seem all rosy. You're kind of in a honeymoon phase initially. You love being with that person. You want to spend more time with that person, and you have shared interests and activities. And then something happens. You start discovering the bad parts of that other person, the parts that are really hard to connect with. And then you kind of sit back and you say, what happened? What happened? We were so happy before. So let's kind of take it slowly and let's look at how you can prevent something happening in your romantic relationship. First, we're going to talk about the destructive communication. And when I see couples in therapy, the first thing they usually say is that we're not communicating well. And so when I ask them about that, what do you mean by that? They say, well, he never listens to me, or she doesn't seem to care about me because she doesn't want to have sex anymore, or whatever. So, it gets really destructive right away sometimes. And so you need to know what's going on that is destructive. So I would like you to look at this list and kind of check in on yourself, turn the mirror back on yourself and be willing to say, I guess I do some of these things. So are you intimidating in your stance? Do you tend to criticize and judge that other person? Do you tend to have blaming statements that come out of your mouth? Do you explode in anger? Or do you just overreact to things? Do you really listen to that person? Do you assume the negative about that person because maybe they've always lied to you, and you assume then that everything that comes out of their mouth is a lie? And then do you tend to take things personally? The dynamics between a couple is also very interesting. That's one thing I can tell after the first session with people. I look at whether they are into the attack and defend mode. In other words, it's almost like an offense and a defense in a football game. Are they into a superior-inferior dynamic in which, it's kind of like a lion and a mouse? What's going on with that? Or is there something like a loud and louder dynamic where it's kind of like a baseball bat challenge? And, they keep shouting above each other. And then there are people who like to talk a lot, and then there are people who don't like to talk and are more silent and more quiet. So the dynamic between a couple is very important to look at. Is it destructive or is it constructive? And then if you look at, how did we get this way? you know, that isn't the way I wanted a relationship. What happened? So you might want to look at how your parents were. You know, what did you learn growing up? Did you learn that you need to kind of push your husband in order to get him to do anything? Did you learn that you shouldn't talk back to your wife and you should just let her do anything she wants to? What did you learn from your parents? Do you want to continue that in your relationship? And then how can you change it? Well, stay tuned. We're going to be talking about that in the second half. We're going to be talking about how you can, you know, really work to change those dynamics between the two of you. What can you do? There are good things that you can do. I want you to have some hope in that. And sometimes it requires going to therapy to figure it out, because then a third person is hopefully objective in looking at your dynamic. And when I have two people in front of me, I try to always be very respectful of the fact that each person could contribute both to the destructive part of the relationship as well as to the constructive part of the relationship. And so, you know, that's an important piece to look at. And so each time I always give them both homework, because both need to take personal responsibility for the relationship. It's two people. And then you look at John Gottman and what he found in his love lab that he had, where he did objective research with couples. What he found was that what he called the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So these 4 things that couples tend to do are what tend to pull people apart. First of all, criticism, attacking the character of the person. You always do this. You never do this. You never listen to me. You know, why can't you ever do this? And that contempt, that tone that people have, that body stance, that look in your eyes that just says, you know, I don't like you anymore. That's awful in a relationship. And then if you get defensive because that other person's attacking you, okay, so you become the victim kind of, and the other person is kind of the perpetrator. So you kind of make excuses. You kind of, you know, well, you did this to me, so I'm going to do this to you. So it's easy to get defensive. And it's easy to start stonewalling, kind of withdrawing because you don't want to have any more fights. You just, you know, and then some people get into the silent treatment, which is, okay, I'm going to show you how mad I can get at you. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to connect with you at all. I'm not going to have sex with you at all. Too bad, forget it. So, you know, what I've found over the years, after 20 years of doing therapy with couples and 10 years of doing marriage enrichment with my husband, that marriage enrichment seminars, let me get that straight. What I found in working with couples is that more than likely these days we're having more women who are getting to be kind of the attacker and more criticism coming from the woman. And oftentimes it's the man who becomes more defensive and stonewalling. Now that's not always the case, but I just want to let you know that I'm seeing that a lot more these days. And I think it's, you know, women are feeling their rights these days, and they feel like they need to speak up, which is good. We'll talk about how to do that in a positive way. Okay. And then there's a mistaken beliefs that we can all have. And it's important to look at these and to really examine your own conscience about, why do you do things in a relationship? What do you do that might cause that relationship to kind of go into a demise? And oftentimes it's the belief system that we have. So do you have that need to control? And that's this intense need to make sure that you are right, that you win in the situation. You come off as the superior, the one who knows it all. If that's the case, that's really destructive for a relationship. If you are the person that avoids conflict totally, and you don't want to get into it, that also can be a problem. But can you see how the two often interact? You've got one who's controlling and one who's pulling away. and look at that. So one who's badgering with questions, one who's trying to get all this information from somebody else. And oftentimes the other person is saying, I don't want to get into it with you. Don't come and talk to me. I'm just going to avoid you. Okay. And then you have the people that kind of have this need to fix the other person. Well, oftentimes, especially women, don't want you to fix them. They just want you to listen. They want you to listen and validate where they are. They don't want to be fixed. And so if you tend to want to fix, give advice, well, just do this and you'll be fine. Just, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Some people don't like advice. Maybe you need to ask them, do you want some advice? Would I be able to share something that I think might help you? Instead of just automatically saying, what you should do. And then there's one on the bottom, need to achieve. What's the matter with that? Well, what if one of you has this intense need to achieve, say, at work, and you want so badly to go up the ladder of success and status and power and money, of course. And so you have this need to be working all the time. Is that going to help the relationship? Usually not. Okay. What if you've got two people who have that need to achieve? They're very business-oriented, goal-oriented, which can be very fine. However, do they ignore the relationship? So the beliefs that we have oftentimes push our behavior, push our actions. So we need to look at that. What are your beliefs? What did you grow up with? What do you want to have? If you have one of these mistaken beliefs, I would encourage you to get the motivation to kind of counteract that, telling yourself, you know what? Nobody likes to be told what to do. Nobody likes. I have not found one person that wants to be controlled. And so for you to be able to say, I guess it's not respectful for me to do that. And, I found that out with my husband. He didn't want to be told what to do. I certainly don't want to be told what to do. And so I keep telling him that. Don't tell me what to do. As a matter of fact, if you tell me what to do, I'm going to try to do the opposite, because I guess I have a little rebellion in me. And we often do. Okay? So watch what your belief system is. What are your expectations for the other person? Are they out of line? Do you need to rework your belief system so you can have a better relationship? Oftentimes it will help. And there are some other destructive influences that I feel a need to talk about. And so oftentimes there are affairs, there's flirting with other people that don't feel comfortable to your partner. Oftentimes women often don't like the fact that their man is into pornography. It feels like an affair to them. And then if you tend to have another priority in life of either your work or children, yeah, that can be a boundary issue. Okay. And then if there's any untreated or continual mental health problems, such as, let's take explosive anger. Anger is one of those things that can really destroy a relationship. And it can get out of control with violence. It can get out of control with verbal and emotional aggression. None of that is helpful. If you have that issue, if you tend to have that, please look at how you can work on your own anger management. I do have another webinar on that. I also have a book that you could order that I used for my anger management group for 20 years. Please be willing to look at that, as well as if you have an alcohol or drug problem, this can tear a relationship apart. Be willing to, challenge yourself enough to change that behavior. If you are depressed, or if your partner is depressed, it's often hard to connect with them because they're kind of in their own world of depressed mood and often don't have the motivation to do a lot of things or connect emotionally. So that can be something. Maybe medication will help. Therapy might help. What can you do that will help? If you're overly stressed, I see so many people who are overly stressed with work right now. And I think that's because so many businesses aren't necessarily hiring as many people as they need to because of budget concerns. And so the people that are left there are overly stressed and overly pressured. And so if that's you, find ways to relax, work on that. And your anxiety, if it's out of control, if you're panicky, if you're losing sleep, work on that and get help for relaxation and anxiety control. Other family problems can also interfere. If you have an extended family and there's problems in that extended family, oftentimes that can separate a couple. Financial issues often are a problem that people are dealing with, and maybe one is a spender, one is a saver. You got a problem right there. You got to talk about it. Okay? Are there discipline problems with the kids? Are there disagreements about just about anything? Moving, where are the kids going to go to school? House projects. Anytime there is house renovation or major house construction, I see people all the time who are saying, this has just been so hard on us. It's almost tearing us apart. So be careful. And since the pandemic, I'm seeing more people that are being torn apart by political differences as well as belief differences, say in vaccines, masking, whatever. So, there could be just about anything that pulls you apart. What are you willing to do? How much effort are you willing to do with yourself, first of all, to get rid of these destructive influences? And I always start with this with people, because if you add all these wonderful things to a relationship, but you don't take out the destructive stuff, it's not going to help, because people remember those destructive things a lot more, and they hurt more, and they just pull you away. So that's why I start with this. Okay. And so now we take a breath and we think about, how can we build a romantic relationship between the two of us? What can we do? And I think this question at the bottom is just so important. How can I be a better partner to you? What can I do? That takes some humility to be able to ask somebody that. And it took me a while before I was willing to do that, because I thought I was doing everything right. But it does take time. It takes time away from work, time away from the kids, to actually sit down and talk. It takes some energy, some motivation, and it is ongoing. I've been married for over 40 years. I'm still working on mine. I'm still working on me, how I can be a better person in my marriage. Okay. And luckily, and what a blessing that my husband is also working on his part. And so that's what it takes. Now we're going to talk about the opposite type of communication. What is constructive? What can you do? And we're going to take it really slow. We're going to go back and we're going to talk about what is important for communication. And if people would really look at this in their own lives and pay attention to the basics, there would be so much difference in a relationship. I cannot tell you. So I'm going to go through these just a little bit, because they are so important. How important these days is undistracted attention. Without the phone in front of you, without the computer in front of you. How many of us are stuck on our phones and our computers, and that is destroying relationships? Be willing to put that away for a short time, to communicate, to say, hi, how are you doing? I care about you, okay? And face each other. And my husband and I are older now, so, oftentimes we're yelling at each other from different rooms. Be in the same room when you're trying to talk to each other. It does help. And I've also found that keeping your head out of the freezer or the refrigerator helps at the same time. If you're talking to the refrigerator, it's not listening. To be able to focus on what that other person is saying. When you're listening, this is attentive listening. How easy it is to be thinking in your own head about your own agenda, what you need to do next, instead of really putting your own agenda aside and really thinking, what is this person trying to say to me? This person that I care about is trying to communicate something important. Maybe I don't think it's important. Maybe I think it's even stupid. It's not even worthwhile, but to me, but it is to him. It is to her. I need to listen to that. And you listen to understand what the other person is trying to say. Sometimes they don't even say what they're trying to say. Sometimes they're talking and talking and talking. Maybe you can kind of sense that they're really frustrated. They're really angry. And so you can say that back to them in a positive way when you respond. Boy, it sounds like you're really angry about this. I'm sorry that this is affecting you. That's responding with empathy. And try really hard to not interrupt. It's so hard, but it's so important to be able to stop what you think you need to say, especially if it's in the middle of somebody else's stuff. And you might have to, if the other person is talking a lot, you might have to say, could I just say something? Would you be willing to listen to my side of it? And that's okay. So try not to work that way, but try to work on yourself, your own nonverbals. What are your eyes saying? Are your eyes soft or are they hard? Are you scowling at them? What are you doing? Okay. And to act interested, even if you're not really interested. Can you try to act that way? Act as if you're interested. You might have to ask questions to clarify. Can you just share a little bit more about what you're talking about so I can try to understand? I didn't read that book, so I don't know. And then when you're responding, to be respectful with your words. So you might, have all this stuff in your mind. You're thinking, I just don't have time to listen to this. I don't really care about what you're saying. But try really hard not to say that kind of stuff. To be able to say, could we talk another time later? That would be easier for me to listen to you. And maybe you're all upset. Maybe you need to calm down first before you really are able to listen to that other person. Watch your tone. I have so many couples coming to me saying, that other person just has a terrible tone when he talks to me. Watch your own tone. Use I statements. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Make requests, not demands. Nobody likes to be demanded. Nobody wants demands. They want requests are a little bit easier. We're going to talk about that too. And to show interest when you are responding. So this is basics, but very important. Look at what you do or what you don't do here that could be helpful or destructive. And just like any course in communication or anything else that you've taken, oftentimes the first thing you do with the second sequence in the course is you review from the first course. So again, a review never hurts. Review it often with yourself. Review it in your talks with each other. This has just been hard for me when you've been saying blaming statements to me. Can we try to talk differently? Okay. So you use calm, respectful words. You work on your own attitude. You work on your own frustration management. And to be able to say what you think, we're going to talk about that in a minute. To be positive, even encouraging. Do you try to be encouraging? People do not get enough encouragement. I cannot say that enough to people. So if, the other person, did a lousy job on something, but they at least took some time to try, give them credit for what they did do. Thank you for trying. Thank you for the effort you made. I appreciate it when people try to be thoughtful of each other. And no matter what the other person does, to be able to thank them, to be grateful, and to be encouraging. Because you're going to get a lot farther in a relationship if you encourage rather than if you discourage. And now what I term is respectful assertiveness. Assertiveness is important. Absolutely. Be assertive, but even though you have the right to say what you think, it is better if you say it respectfully. And people, I found this all the time, people will listen to you more easily and more, they will just spend more time. They'll be more willing to listen to you. May not agree with you, but they might be more willing to listen to you if you are respectful. There's no guarantee here that you're going to get your way when you're assertive, respectfully. And even though you'd like to just, really come at that person and really just yell and scream at that person, pull back emotionally, use your I statements instead of you statements. There's a lot of power in these. And even though the formulas that I listed here, they seem kind of plastic, but I'm still going to go through them with you. And this is how you can make them a little bit more practical and real. I want us to be able to talk occasionally at the dinner table and not just eat or not just watch TV, because I really want to know about your life. I want you to know that I care about you. I feel scared when, you don't tell me when you're coming home at night, because I'm not sure if something has happened to you. I'm concerned about our kids because I don't know if we're parenting them right. I need to know that you love me. I need to know when, we're being intimate together, that, you care about me. I need to know that you're respectful. Prepare yourself, because you don't know how the other person's going to respond. Maybe that other person will, agree with you. Thank you for sharing. Maybe they will say that. Maybe they will, get really snarky. I don't know what they're going to say. You don't know what they're going to say. And there's no guarantee that when you're respectful that you're going to get what you want. So prepare yourself and be willing to accept what the other person does or says. Not that you agree with it, but you can't change what comes out of their mouth. You can ask them, I have a request. This is the alternate that you can use if this kind of thing has not gotten you what you want. Excuse me. So you say, I have a request, and the other person has a chance to say, what does she want? And then you say, I would really appreciate it if, you could tell me when you're going to be home, because it helps me to feel more comfortable. I can know when I can have dinner ready. I can know when to have the kids in bed so we can have an intimate time. Please let me know. Okay. And so we come to conflict resolution, which, it's a wonderful thing when we can do it right, but oftentimes we don't do it in the proper way. And I'm going to share with you, as you look at this list of what I'm suggesting, I'm going to share with you a time that I did it mostly wrong. And it's come back to bite me a number of times, but it really made us talk, and it made us to kind of sit back. So what happened was, years ago, I got fed up with all the books on the floor in our house. My husband loves to collect books, and he keeps ordering books, and he goes to book sales, and and books are stacking up all over the place. And I got fed up one day, and I said, this is crazy. I don't want books all over the floor. I want to have a neater house. So, hey, I just found a sale online. I'm going to order these bookcases. They're huge, tall, white, clean-looking bookcases. They're only $50 each. I'm going to go ahead and just order them and have them delivered out. I did that. Didn't tell my husband. I thought, I won't tell him what's going on. I'll just try to figure it out myself. Well, lo and behold, they got delivered, and they were too heavy for me to drag up the stairs. We have a split level. Too heavy for me to drag up the stairs for myself. So I had to wait until my husband came home. And So my husband comes home. He's a mailman, and I said, I'm wondering if you could, pull these up the stairs for me. And of course, what's his first question? What are these? What did you do? How much did you spend on these? And I thought, I guess I'm going to have to figure out how to say this. So I said, well, I got fed up with the books that are sitting on the floor, and I ordered some bookcases, and they were only $50 each, and I thought it would be a really good deal. And he says, again, how much did you spend, Mary Jo? And I said, $250. And he said, what? At the time, that was a lot for us. And I hadn't told him. And actually, it was a bigger deal to him that I hadn't told him, that I tried to hide this. And so he was more upset about that. And I said, can you just bring him up the stairs? Let's try one. Let's put one together. So he dragged one up the stairs. It's really heavy. He dragged one up the stairs and plopped it on the living room floor. And I said, okay, I'll help you put it together. Let's see what we can do. And he said, I don't think this is going to be good. And you got to understand, my husband likes real wood. He likes real oak carved wood bookcases. And these were plain white, the old particle board type of bookcases. And he said, these are really ugly, Mary Jo. I said, well, let's just try it. And so we did. We put it together. We dragged it in the other room, started putting books in it, and lo and behold, he said, you know what? This isn't so bad. This isn't so bad. It actually, maybe it would be kind of worthwhile. So I said, how about if we try putting another one together? Let's see if we can find a way to do that. So we did. But so again, I wasn't honest. I didn't time it out right. I didn't listen to his needs. I did share in some I statements. He did some you statements. We eventually validated what each other wanted. I eventually was able to say to him, I know you like hardwood bookcases, but they're so expensive, we can't afford them. And he said, yeah, you're right. So we ended up compromising. We kept all 5 bookcases. We still have them. That was I think almost 20 years ago. So we found a common goal, getting the bookcases up and getting rid of the books on the floor. We needed to follow through. Over the years, we've said, those bookcases have come in pretty handy. But of course, he still wanted his wood bookcases, and he has some others, so I'm glad he has those too. I needed to be able to respect his needs and his wants as well. So please do it differently than I do it. Please follow the resolution steps and be willing to compromise if you can. If you can't, what are you willing to concede? Sometimes you can't compromise. What are you willing to give up this time? If you say, how about if we try it your way first, and then if it doesn't work, why don't we try it my way? Find ways to work it out. And so in looking at values that build a relationship, all of these are important. My husband was willing to forgive me. I was willing to be humble and say, I'm sorry. I won't do that again. I won't hide anything from you. I will be honest with you from now on. And to be able to have that self-control so you don't fly off at each other. These are values that can build that trust, build that joy in a relationship. And it's a funny story that we can tell. And it's something that, means something to us now. But we learned a lot through it. And now we come to Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And he's written all kinds of books. Sometimes these are, it's not just with marriage. Sometimes he's got one, I think he's got one for love languages with kids, love languages at work. I really want to get those because I want to see how he how he kind of reworks it. But basically, most of you have probably heard of the love languages, the 5 love languages. And when I first heard about this, I brought it into therapy, and I was just amazed at how it does build a relationship. If people are really willing to look at this as an important connector for each of you. So it's either physical touch, acts of service, quality time, words of affirmation, or gifts. And let's take them apart a little bit. Each one is important, of course. But maybe there's one of them that makes you feel most loved. And if you don't get it, you get angry, you get frustrated. And that's the important piece. And so you need to be able to figure out what yours is, because it's very important that you share what yours is with the other person, because that's what they need to try to give to you. And so if you're both doing that, you're both assessing, you're both sharing, this is mine, you may think you know it. You may think you know the other person's, but you actually might be wrong. Maybe you've been giving them what you tend to like. Maybe yours is acts of service, which that's mine right now. Okay, so maybe I tend to do things for my husband, and I keep doing, thinking that he's going to love me, but actually he kind of likes the quality time right now. And each of us have different dialects. So I might think for quality time, I would think that going out to eat together, going to a movie together, going on a trip together, those are quality time to me, but not to him. He's become more of a homebody. What he likes is sitting down in front of the TV, having dinner, and sitting on the couch together. That's quality time to him. And I need to pay attention to that, because if that's his, I need to fulfill his love tank in order to help him feel most loved. Words of affirmation. Oftentimes that's an important one if you're not getting it. In other words, if the other person is sending all kinds of blaming statements at you, you're not getting those words of affirmation. And you're kind of yearning for them. You need those. And so you might need to be able to clue the other person in. You know what? When you put me down like that, it just feels terrible. And I would really love it if you would stop that and try to find anything good about me. Isn't there anything good about me that you could tell me about? You like my hair, or you like the way I made that dish last night, or anything. I would like you to do that for me. And gifts is an interesting one. It's not just flowers and candy that you bring to each other. I had a lady in therapy the other day that said that she would love it if her husband would give her little notes periodically that would tell her that he loves her. And, I wouldn't have thought of that, but that is something very, very nice. My husband and I give cards to each other, and that's another gift, kind of. It doesn't have to cost a lot. Of course, I would love jewelry. I would love expensive gifts, but we don't have the income for that. So I need to respect that and not expect that. And a gift that is given with good intention is a wonderful gift. So be able to be grateful for that. So these are wonderful things that we can use to connect. Commitment and priority. It's another thing that can build or destroy a relationship. If commitment is important to you in a relationship, how does it factor in? Have you talked about boundaries? Do you know whether that other person is willing to have those boundaries so that you can feel like he or she is committed to you? Very important that you talk about that. Some people don't mind if other people flirt, but oftentimes with a relationship, we want that person to be committed to us and not to be looking at other people. And then if you could list the 5 priorities, top five priorities in your life, what would they be? If they would be work, family, the third one be? Maybe faith, maybe children, I don't know, vacation. 5 priorities in your life. If number 1 is not your relationship, there could be a problem. Where does your relationship fall in that top 5? Be willing to look at that and be willing to say, okay, what can we do about that? Because our work-life balance is out of whack. We need to be able to connect better. Let's talk about that. And you might have said, okay, Mary Jo, you haven't said a thing about sex. Sex is important in a relationship, in a romantic relationship. And the 2 best pieces of advice I can say would be to be respectful of each other, to be kind, to think about your other person's needs as well as your own. And the fact that romance is so important in the sexual relationship, especially for the woman. You know, when my husband and I did marriage enrichment seminars, and we would have all these people in front of us, I would ask the women, I said, how do you feel about emotional connection? Do you want that or need that before you really feel more comfortable in giving more sexually? And almost to a fault, the women would say, yes, I need that emotional connection. I need that romance. And my husband would say, you know what? It's kind of like the man can go anytime. The man is kind of like a light bulb, switch and you're on. Whereas a woman sometimes needs to be wooed. And a woman kind of is like an iron that needs to warm up. And so maybe a romantic dinner would kind of get you in the mood, ladies. Maybe putting on your makeup and fancy outfit would make you feel better, more sexy, more willing to connect in that way. And sometimes it's hard, especially if you have kids, to kind of get in that mood again because you've been in kind of the maternal-paternal role. So to be able to get out of that and to be able to find that piece of you that is romantic, that is sexual, that's an important piece. And so that emotional connection, I've checked in therapy with women all during the 20 years that I have done therapy, and that is so true. Women especially need that emotional connection. How do you want that emotional connection to be given to you? Is it by the 5 love languages? Is it something else? What is it? You need to find that. And I'm going to say just a short word about casual sex and living together. What I found over the years is that it is very easy to fall into casual sex and then just going ahead and living together. And there's dangers in that for the relationship. It's fun and it's easy to do, but the danger is not only sexually transmitted diseases, it's also that the relationship may suffer because you didn't put relationship before the sex and put that as a priority before the sex. That's what dating is really supposed to be about, is, you know, do you match with me? Do I match with you? Do we connect other than sex? My husband would say, you know, sex is kind of like the frosting on the cake. And the frosting is wonderful, but there's all kinds of layers underneath. And when I think of this luscious chocolate cake with chocolate mousse filling inside and, you know, the chocolate frosting on top. The chocolate frosting is great, but look at all that other stuff underneath that can build that relationship. If you just had the frosting, yes, it's great, but there's no foundation. You need the foundation. So to be able to take time, that's what this whole webinar is about, taking time with each other, being able to think this through, building that romantic relationship from the ground up, not just on the frosting level. It takes time, energy, work, and it takes an ongoing commitment to doing that with each other. And so I'm hoping that this has been helpful for you. There's been a lot of information that I've shared with you, I hope it's been something that you can use practically in your relationship to build it, and so that you can build your relationship so that you fit with your personalities, with your priorities, and with your interests, and that you can have that wonderful relationship that will be ongoing, that means so much to you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and it's been a pleasure to be able to share this information with you.